Ladies and gentlemen, Hassan Ragab. Okay. Hassan is internationally celebrated for his ability to fuse contemporary technology with historically built environment. Am I getting it right, Hassan? Not bad. His work is a unique conversation between geometry, philosophy, and storytelling, where computational design, AI, and visual language come together to reframe how we perceive architecture and design. Tonight, Hassan takes us on a fascinating journey that pushes us to see design not as a static, but as a living, breathing conversation with time. Let's have a look at some of his work.
إنسان أيا إنسان ما أجهلك ما أتفهك في الكون وما أضألك شمس وقمر وسدوم وملايين نجوم فاكرها يا موهوب مخلوق لك.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Hassan Ragab on stage. If I told you he was Parsi, you would believe him.
Let me put in a timer because I might speak forever and I don't want to bore you. So, well, I'm very happy to be here. So thank you for the Jaguar group. Thank you, everyone. This is my second time in India. I already know like a lot of familiar faces. And one of the things that really resonates with me, and actually, maybe I need to tell you this because it's all over the world. I guess like what's happening in India and the creative scene in India is pretty remarkable in terms of like the work that you guys are doing. The events that everyone is organizing, it's definitely like a different creative scene, and it's going on internationally, and it's really inspiring me to see the work of many of the Indian creatives around there. So thank you, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I don't know how to start this, but like imagine if like a building tried to do this to you, which is gonna be weird. I feel like my work usually is on the realm of like intangible, and it's always ambiguous. And it's extending to who I am personally. So I don't know how to describe myself. I did a lot of things in my life. It's mostly around architecture and design and art. But it gets so weird to me that I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But maybe there are some guides that can tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing, or at least inform myself. Sorry, that's the other way. Yeah. So like I've gotten pretty probably famous, let's call it this way, with like my early works in AI and architecture about a few years ago. And there was a reason, like when I started working, I think like it was an extension. At that point, I was like hitting the 12th year of my career in design. And I always trying to pursue something, but I didn't fully realize what it is. And when I started working with AI, I thought like it's a great opportunity to discover a new something, to break down like a new visual vocabulary. And I really believed in how technology can help us in doing that. But the more that I did it, or like the more that I got involved into this world, and the more that the world has also involved in that, and I saw a lot of people kind of moving forward to do this, I started to ask myself, what am I really trying to do here? And then I remembered
L'odore delle
this.
case dei vecchi. La domanda era: che cosa ti piace di più veramente nella vita? Ero destinato alla sensibilità.
So this is like a short snip of the movie The Great Beauty. I don't know, probably Pietro, probably you know it. And like in this scene, this is by Paolo Sorrentino. So the main character, Jeb Campertella, he is an artist, he's a writer, and he is always lost. He's like living like the very fun life in Rome, but he always keeps asking himself, like, what am I doing this? What I'm really relating to? And I usually find myself in that same situation whenever I'm doing something that people will say it's cool, or like when I'm having a good time, it's like, that doesn't make sense. And I always try to repeat the work that I do. But I think what could sum up what I was trying to do is like, I was actually trying to find like the other great beauty. I was trying to find something that is beautiful, and the term beautiful is, I think it's more internal, or like at least I thought it was internal, because anything could be beautiful, right? Who am I to say what is beautiful? And this like endeavors like took so many ways, like sometimes in architecture. So this is a project that I was helping a company in the Netherlands to achieving, and again, it's like to how to use AI and integrate it with computational design to find like this new visual vocabulary of a building, or basically in form of like, let's break down at least what architecture really means. So this is from a series that I created last year. It's called The City, and it's exploring how buildings, they are just not buildings really, they are beings. We just don't see them because we live in a different timeline. So this series like kind of explores, okay, like maybe how buildings, if they kissed, or like maybe before that they dance, or like, you know, what's the relationship between the buildings and its context. So the one on the right here on the left, it's called Into My Arms, and it's about Alexandria and about global warming. It's like, what is the relationship between the buildings and the sea? Is it like a bad relation? Is it a good relation, right? And also like this is like another piece, what's called Wicked Emergence, and like it's imagining like the cities, they don't really get built, but they actually emerge, and we just don't build them. We are actually the agents of emergence. And this was like displayed on the Fiesp building, the one on the right here in Sao Paulo, which was like pretty awesome. And at that point, while I was trying to find like, and to try to explore what is visual vocabulary, I realized, oh, I'm very lucky because I'm Egyptian. And in Egypt, like there was all these sorts of like different factors and different components that can really add to my own vocabulary. So one of the, I think, like silver linings of living in Egypt and having every empire probably in the history invading the country and trying to change the history of it, like we get like something imprinted from like different parts of the world. And while we have a very, very interesting history, there is like some intangible ways that we can't really perceive how this history is connected. And I think at that point I thought, oh, maybe AI could really help me with that, and it's pretty cool. And also like one big part of like in my search of like exploring the visual vocabulary is like, I always hated to be mediocre. I hated mediocrity. I hated to create something that is generic. And one of the probably one of the most interesting articles or reads that I always go back to is like this article this study by Alex Murrell, The Age of Average, which in this study he talks about how we are living in a world where everything is the same, and it's because everybody wants the same thing. And not to summarize it too much, but like one of the examples is like Airbnb, right? If you went to an Airbnb in different parts of the country now, it like looked all the same. And also he referred to the Rem Koolhaas's paper, The Generic City. So imagine if you're looking at any skyline for any city that was built during the 20th century, you would hardly see any difference. They all kind of look the same. Maybe like there will be one tower that's significant, but they all kind of look the same. And I think this idea of like everybody wanting the same thing, and then social media and algorithms, it has kind of started to push me, okay, I need to rethink how I am doing things. So like, what is really beauty and how to challenge that. And one of the things also like that kind of drives my work is like, I think as an architect, or like, I don't know if it's most architects, but at least in my point of view, I think architects, when they walk on the streets, they tend to isolate everything that's in the foreground and think about the architecture. They think about the details, they think about sustainability, they think about the codes. So like how the spaces are divided. Are there enough balconies? Like, you know, fire plan that's going in space. But usually there's a lot of things that's happening in the foreground, which basically the people, right? And I think sometimes I feel architects, they sometimes forget that architecture is about people, not about architecture itself. And that's maybe something that I started to feel, okay, that's how I need to change like my entire perspective. So basically, architecture is not really about architecture. And as you can see on the left, this is like the Paris plan that was developed by Le Corbusier. And on the right, this is a view from Orange County, where I now live. And while you can see, yeah, there are some green spaces, but like actually the same ideas are from modernism, where like pure formless function and everybody has the exact same needs, it has transformed into our modern lives. So while like everybody is looking for like the American dream of like having like living in the suburbs, I hardly find people attached to their homes because their homes or like their buildings, they don't have the character because it's all about architecture, right? So in my world, I don't think architecture is about architecture. I'm definitely not about architecture. So everything that I create, while it might relate to architecture, it's not, which is weird, I know, but for me it makes sense. And also it's not about the tools. And this is, of course, like a question that I get asked a lot because like how technology evolve and how it changes. So the first question that everybody always asks me is like, hey, which tool did you use? And it's really not about the tools. It's, for me, it's just like about the people. And I think this is a narrative that everybody, I think, or it's something that I think has been more on the foreground of like experience. We are working through the experience of the human being and try to build our way through design and not the other way around. To start building from an experience, I needed, or like I think I always need to find an orientation point to myself of where am I headed, and because like I like to overthink everything. So the first question is like probably the simplest one, which is who I am. Like what would make me create something that is of a value? What will make me see beauty in the first place? And this gets me back to another movie, which is called The Mummy. It's a very, very popular, it's a very, very excellent Egyptian movie, but it's not that popular, unfortunately.
هل رأيت الموت يا مراد؟ ماذا؟
Not to break down like the plot of the movie that much, but it's in this movie, the director Shariat Salam, it's based on like a true story of somebody who's trying to struggle between his own identity and history. And like this struggle, I feel like myself kind of always like be into, which inspired like this movie that I created, short movie that I created. And this will be like a great example of why tools are not important. So this movie I created in September in 2024. It shouldn't break, I'm sorry.
هل رأيت الموت يا مراد؟ انتظر.
So to create this, I think I needed around like 7 to 10 days, and I used like maybe 7 or 8 different platforms, and I had like my own computer tower to run all of like this work and these simulations. And then because the tools are moving so fast, I tried to recreate the same thing, just slightly differently, with different tools back in April this year.
هل رأيت الموت يا مراد؟
This was created in 5 minutes over my phone back in April. And like, basically it can tell you, it's really not about the tools. It's about like the intuition. And speaking of intuition, I think like one of my most favorite series is which is called The City is a Tram. And it's about Alexandria and about how some physical object, like the tram, can hold so many intangible elements. It's like for me, the tram is about nostalgia. It's about an ecosystem that most people won't like see in their daily lives unless they're like really Alexandrian.
إنسان
You already
يا
have seen this.
إنسان ما أجهلك.
I'm not gonna show it again, but like basically this was like inspired by a poem by Salah Shaheen, which like he had like this quarantines, which like it's similar like to Earl, I don't remember the name of the poet, but it's like how you kind of break or like take this like vocabulary that explores a certain geometry that is really intangible and how you turn it like into a tangible element. This also like part of like a hybrid between Alexandria and Milano, like luckily, so like it's called the Tale of Two Cities, and again, this is always, I think like in that mindset, I always feel like there's this connection that I am not a singular entity. I always relate to something bigger than me. So I am part of a bigger system. And in order to understand myself or who I am, I need to understand who we are, and which basically like a collective identity. This was like a very, very interesting intersection between my understanding of who we are and the understanding of like how people perceive us, or like how the model understand who I am. The music is not working, sorry. Yeah, sorry, it's much better with the music, so I'm gonna repeat that. Okay.
الشارع ده كنا ساكنين فيه زمان كل يوم يضيق زيادة أصبح الآن بعد اسمع يا حلو لما ضحك
Again, this is another piece by Salah Jahin, which is called The Streets Are Stories. And I find it just beautiful how when you escape as an architect from the realm of like geometry into the realm of like other art, like poems, or like even, I don't know, even like looking at the sky or anything. It just like, it is so freeing as an architect to stop thinking about architecture boundaries. And it helps me understand who I am. And another quote by like Naguib Mahfouz, which is, "Home is not where you're born. Home is where all your attempts are to escape ceases." And it, again, like when I remember these like words of other people about what it means to belong to somewhere, it kind of changed my entire perspective entirely about like what beauty really means. And it also with it, like it changes the work, my work, or like how I perceive things. So maybe like we can use technology to unweave like layers of history and then weave it back together to create something that is truly Egyptian. So like, you know, if I told you like I'm from Egypt, the first thing that you'll think about is like the ancient Egyptians, right? But that's not, but we don't speak, I cannot read hieroglyphics. I cannot relate to the ancient Egyptians more than I can relate to like people closer in history, like the people during Islam or like the Christianity or even the Romans. So to describe what an Egyptian character is something that is profoundly hard. And I see a lot of people trying to describe that, but like we all fall into the problem or like the hurdles of describing ourselves in one thing but not the other. And that's like sometimes I really like to challenge that with like my work by juxtaposition, like over putting like layers of history in something that is breaking the forms of like what a form really means, like what a good composition really means. But then like when we work with AI, it's like really interesting because you are not dealing with your own perspective, you are also dealing like with the entire humanity perspective around you. Because like when you're working with AI, if you tell it like something like Egypt, it will get back like it will get back like the pyramids. Like it just like there's the bias issue, right? And I had big problems with bias myself for years. I thought like, yeah, like using AI, it's not good, like because like of the stereotyping and all of this issue. But little that I know, the more that I work with these tools, the more that I discovered that like stereotyping and bias is like a great tool to present the present. And I tried to play around that like in some of my series, like this series is called We're All Kings. And it's just like trying to explore the present from a very biased narrative, but this biased narrative, instead of like looking at it and like hating it or rejecting it, I'm trying to accept it and see where the truth lies in that. And for me, this actually forms a new vocabulary that I find beautiful. I can relate to it as being an Egyptian, as being in these places. And it's just like I'm not really interested in the works of Zaha Hadid anymore. I'm not interested in all these shiny objects. No, these things have like real stories, similar to the video that you've seen, like that I did for like Salah Jain. Like these like chaos, if you want to call it chaos, they are actually emerging from like stories. They are emerging from experiences. They're emerging for something that is true. And these works, I mean, I love working with these series because like they keep on like building up. So like if I'm using more than just one tool, I'm using like, or like I'm expanding on more than just one bias. So several layers of biases. And within them, I'm trying to find my own way through something that is really, really intangible. And this is not just like something that like I face only in Egypt. Like I've moved to the United States around 7 years now, and I don't know if I can call it home or not. I feel I definitely belong there. My son was born there. I work there. But it kind of also makes me question about ideas about the place and like what it really means. And as architects, can we really imagine a better future if we are not dealing with the present? Like, what is the reason? Why would I think about how my child will, like the place that my child will grow up like 20 years ago, if he sees like this, like now, right now? Why are not we discussing this and how we can use technology not to eliminate this, but just like to present it, and that might give us a better way to understand it. And that basically, I don't know, it turns my work into trying to really, if I want to find beauty, I think I don't need to look into the future. I don't need to look into the intangible. I really need to look into the present. I think there is a mirror. I look at like the technology that we use and all the circumstances, the political, the economical, the social, is just like a mirror. And we need to look at this mirror instead of like facing the other way. But when I look at it, I'm usually like a very pessimist person, but sometimes, or like maybe the main code that like driving my work is like this quote by Muhammad Kamil Hussein. It's called like, your hope in humanity, it begins when realizing humanity's hope in you. So it's all about like not seeing beauty from my own perspective, but like trying to reflect on the present, understanding my role as like just a part of a bigger system. And I think that's the only way to define beauty. Beauty is not objective, or like it's not single. You can't like live in a beautiful world alone. We need to live at a beautiful world all together. Thank you so much.